The following marketing information and discussion is provided for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as professional guidance or consultancy. You should find an agency for that. Comexis is a digital marketing agency, so feel free to hire us. But otherwise, just enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, welcome to The Buyer's Journey by Comexis, a discussion-based podcast on the ever-changing marketing landscape. I'm Matthew McGroarty, the social media content producer here at Comexis.
I'm Len Ward, the managing partner at Comexis.
And I'm Josh Lyons, the digital marketing coordinator here at Comexis.
So it is Monday, and on Mondays we talk about the awareness stage of the buyer's journey. And for those of you who need a refresher, the awareness stage is when a potential client or customer is becoming aware of a problem they're having and therefore a product that they might need to research in the consideration phase. Or they become aware of your product, service, brand, and then realize, oh, I either had a problem that this product solves, or for some other reason they're interested in your product, service, brand, etc. And one piece of the sort of awareness stage and the awareness journey throughout the buyer's journey is the power of social media platforms. We've talked about this in the past in that, Facebook is very good, for example, at creating awareness. But another player that we haven't talked about as much has been Snapchat. And the reason we're talking about Snapchat is because Snapchat recently announced at their summit in Los Angeles that they will be, among other things, adding stories and ads to other platforms with the launch of Snapchat Ad Kit and the Snapchat Audience Network. So that doesn't sound super clear from the explanation I just gave, so I'll tell you basically how this is going to work. So apps such as the ones they list are Tinder, House Party, and Adventure Aid are going to use this Snapchat API to have Snapchat stories within those apps. And that includes things, not just stories, such as your Bitmojis and your stickers, things like that. So basically, you're linking Snapchat and Tinder or House Party or Adventure Aid, and you'll be able to use those features in-app. And this was basically a play on half of it to make sure that people aren't copying their app's functions the way that Instagram did for stories and things like that. But on the other side, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes, is a broadening of their ad network. So just full offhand before I go into some of the more ad stuff, what do we think about this, guys?
This is, in reading this one article, it's true. I mean, this is the stabilization Snapchat has been looking for. I think that there was a lot of people who looked at Snapchat and they just did not see this as a viable advertising platform. But I do believe this is a viable ad platform. And I know in this article, which you'll probably get into, the reach they have between 13, 24, 25-year-olds is just unbelievable. It is something that other social media platforms don't have. And if you are looking to market to the younger generation, which is now beginning to move into the buyer generation, or actually to have buying power, Snapchat is a really, really good way. I will say this, though. You guys probably disagree with me, but this is why they don't get me. It is still a very difficult app to use. It's not as easy as clicking and scrolling. It's something where...
I actually agree. I mean, I used Snapchat a lot when I was in high school, when it started to roll out, and then even in college. But recently I've noticed it's just there's the feature of they try and make it so half of it is about just you and your friends and just posting to each other direct messaging, and then the other half of it's is the business side where you can follow businesses that do their own stories and you can see your friends' stories and all that stuff. So it is a little off on how it's formatted, and they probably could work on it on a way to fix it. But I understand what you mean. Yeah. I don't agree completely, but I see why someone like you would find it a little unfamiliar and a little off.
I think a fair point too is we were using Snapchat before its redesign, and many people argued that its redesign made it more complicated. But Snapchat itself wasn't, I guess, as easy to use when we were using it. So for somebody who wasn't familiar with the app beforehand, I could imagine getting very confused on how it works.
I'm on it. I mean, that's how, my kids are on it. So, we have a family type thing where we can all, group chat, we can all talk on there. So my kids, are on there. So it's good for me. I do go into stories and look at it. I mean, obviously I'm in advertising. So, But you guys know my mantra is that we are hitting a capitulation point in social media where it's not the conversation of how many new users are they getting a month has to kind of start dissipating and going away. Although if you are a new social media platform, I think that's a relevant statistic. But Snapchat, I think, is beginning to move into the how much more time are people spending on there. And now, you know, with integration of third parties, now they're going to be in there even more. So I'm a fan of Snapchat, haven't always been a fan of Snapchat, but over the last year, so much so of a fan that I own the stock. I do think this is a viable entity for people to market, but I think that it's one of those things where 10% of your ad dollars need to be in there, maybe 15% if you're B2C. If you're B2C for their age demographic, you have to understand that people you're marketing to don't necessarily have the power to purchase, but what they do have the power to say, hey mom, hey dad, or you know, whoever guardian it may be, this is, you know, what I like this, can we do something like that? So reaching the younger audience, I think, is strong. They become a fan of what it is, next thing you know, they're hitting you up to purchase it. So it's stabilizing, it's becoming a viable entity, and I absolutely think ad dollars should be moved in there if you are marketing B2C.
And here are the numbers that you mentioned. So Snap CEO Evan Spiegel said that, quote, in the United States, Snapchat now reaches nearly 75% of all 13 to 34-year-olds, and we reach 90% of 13 to 24-year-olds. In fact, we reach more 13 to 24-year-olds than Facebook or Instagram in the United States, the UK, France, Canada, and Australia. Of course, those are numbers directly from Snapchat, so while I'm sure they're somewhat accurate, you know, they're perhaps not the most accurate of accurate. But I mean, regardless, even if you shave 10% off of those numbers, those are still very good numbers. So I mentioned before that this isn't just integration with other apps, which is fantastic, but it also, in addition, expands their audience network. So right now, more than 200 apps have already began integrating the privacy-safe Snap Kit that lets you integrate these apps if you are using them. But alongside that, because the integration is occurring, it's another avenue for Snap to show your ads on those platforms and apps that you are using between stories or something like that. They're still working on how exactly they're going to split revenue with developers who are working on these apps. Snap did say that they will be, but they didn't talk about what the divide's going to be, what the interest in that is, et cetera, et cetera. So just something to keep in mind. And we also don't yet know how Snapchat's going to track reach and ad views of non-users, because if this is integrated on the apps that I mentioned and you don't have Snapchat, you will still be able to see these things. Yeah. So that's another thing that they're going to have to figure out pretty quick. Yeah, and then actually, Josh mentioned earlier in the show that Fitbit and Venmo are going to be adding some nice personalization. You can basically mix your Snap with those to get your Bitmoji in your Venmo or on your Fitbit, which is, I mean, nice if you want it. In addition, a new publisher sharing button for the web will let you share articles from, say, the Washington Post and others directly to your Snapchat story. So. Interesting things all around.
Well, they're doing everything. Everything they're doing is just to, you know, obviously keep more people on the site a lot longer. But Snapchat is growing up. Yeah, it's growing up, and it's growing up intelligently. It's funny because people left this thing for dead 18 months ago, and it's amazing. They're doing a nice job.
Yeah, and I'll include, there's a lot of other stories that of things that they announced at their summit in Los Angeles, so I'll make sure I link them in the podcast description, and who knows, maybe we'll do them for one of the shows next week. I think the gaming one in particular was interesting in terms of, you know, obviously keeping people in-app and things like that. So that link will be in the blog post, so definitely take a look at that if you are interested. So thank you everybody for tuning in to today's episode of The Buyer's Journey. Check us out on Chemexus.com, YouTube, and anywhere you can get your podcasts. And please follow us on Twitter at @buyers_journey. Thank you for listening.